And I remember very distinctly looking at her and being like, well, I can't do that. Like if I
It's for
put
everybody
myself,
else. Yeah.
yeah, it's like there are too many things that need to get done. How could I possibly plan myself first? Like it just felt completely unfeasible to do that.
Wow.
And this morning I was thinking, how could I not?
Balance. I think it's a really elusive concept. We think about balance in a lot of ways balance in sitting and walking, and people talk a lot about work life balance. As an OT, I think about occupational balance, engaging in a variety of activity types that are meaningful. And it's something I hear a lot when I hear from OTs who are struggling with overwhelm and burnout, feeling that they're fully engaged in their work, so much so that it's taking over and they're not doing as much or having as much capacity to do the things they want to in their lives. So often the term work life balance comes in here. And I read a book a few years back that kind of turned my thought on work life balance on its head. And it was called Off Balance. And the concept they introduced there was that work is a part of life. And therefore, to put it in opposition to life, as though the two are on opposite sides of a weigh scale, makes work the enemy. And really, our work needs to be meaningful. Our work needs to be an important part of our life. We spend a lot of our life working, and that's valuable, that's meaningful. And so when we're feeling out of balance with our work, using up a lot of our energy resources, and we're not able to fully engage in things outside of work, we need to address that. We talk in this podcast episode a lot about balance and engaging in roles. And I think something that really sticks out for me is that we want to do it all. Like, we want to engage in all of our roles, all of our meaningful activity with our full capacity. And we only have this one pot of time and energy. And to be able to have enough of it to go around into all of our things means we need to make some decisions. Means we need to choose wisely. It means we need to prioritize. And it means that sometimes we can't quite do it all. And we need to figure out what that looks like. Do we have supports? Do we have to put some things off for now? Do we have to do some things in a different way? I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation that Ashley, Reina, and I had. Ashley is a leader in the area of OT business, and she's uniquely positioned because she has an SaaS business, which means software as a service. She is the co-owner of Therabyte, which is a practice management software, or many people would refer to it as an electronic medical records system, EMR. She and her husband co-own the company, and she also has a private practice in Vernon, BC, Canada. She has 3 kids, and she joined my group coaching program, Activate Vitality, last summer. And the idea at that point was to make some important changes in how she was showing up in all of her roles, because cycling in and out of burnout had become a normal pattern for her. And she wanted to disrupt that and find more consistency and that ability to live flexibly, engage in all her roles, but not keep dipping into burnout. She's been a rock star in the program, naturally taking all of the concepts and running with them. And she's also been inspiring and supporting the other group members in doing the same. So appreciate having her as part of our community. In this episode, we talk about balancing different roles throughout the day, breaking up with hustle culture, letting go of doing it all yourself, how to set business goals that are motivating even when uncontrollable variables arise, and finding your people. I hope you like it. Ashley, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because you keep it real, and that's how I like to roll.
Yes, I do.
Can you share with everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So it's so funny. Like the first is I'm Ashley and I'm an OT.
Yes, you are.
So funny how those are like the first 2 things that come into mind. So I am also a mom of 3 and just had my 3rd baby this year, and she's just like the cutest little thing.
She is. She's starting to
Hi.
talk a little more lately, I
Oh
know.
my goodness. She's just like this like bundle of joy. She's so fun. We're all having so much fun with her. And yeah, I am also the co-founder, co-owner of Therabyte, which is an EMR I built for private practice OTs starting in Canada. And now we're moving into the US. And that has been just an incredible journey sharing that and seeing my mission in that and connecting with OTs across North America. It's been really neat. And the impetus for that was my own private practice. So I still do my own private practice, although it's looking smaller and smaller all the time, so that I can focus more on supporting other OTs and building their practices through Therabyte.
Congratulations on branching out into the US. That's a giant market.
Yeah. Yeah. We're like baby steps right now. And the goal is for an official launch in early 2023.
I imagine there's a ton of work in that because regulations are different, privacy laws, where things are housed. How does that?
Yeah, fortunately, the laws are actually stricter in Canada than they are in the US. And so it more comes down. There are just slightly different regulations. So in the States, we have to sign a BAA with each therapist. In Canada, we don't do that. And then we do have servers in both locations to facilitate. And then we have to make sure people are on the right servers. But all of that's done on the back end when people sign up. Yeah, it is. It's an undertaking, but the market there, it's more privatized in the States and there is a need for it. There we go.
Do you think that keeping some private practice going is important to keep you grounded in understanding what's going on out there?
Yeah, I do. And I am finding it harder and harder as my interests just pull me more and more towards Therabyte.
Yeah.
My continuing education is turning into how to run a podcast or marketing and sales. And I'm less interested in learning about autism and how to coach parents. And so I am finding it tricky to stay in both. But in terms of understanding where practitioners are coming from, I'm able to be in it. I feel what the software feels like every week as I'm in it with my own clients. And so it does definitely keep me grounded and allows me to continue to relate. And it's an evolving EMR. We're not done building it out. And so there's new features. And so then I get to experience those new features. And that allows me to then do a better job of supporting those that are coming into using it for sure. Yeah.
And you really enjoy. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say another little piece of that is initially I was really only relating more to the solo practitioners. But in the last couple of years, I have played around with, I took on an OT, didn't last very long, but I did. I took another one. She works by telehealth. And then I took on a rehab assistant. I have done different things that have helped me to understand just outside of that solopreneur and then more into like that small team. Obviously, I don't understand necessarily what it's like to run a big team personally, but I get that as I interact with other people.
So you are a mom of three, a wife, a private practice owner, and you're building this giant thing that keeps on growing, Therabyte. That is busy, hey?
Yeah.
The Canadian, hey? Pretty busy, eh? Yeah. How is that experience for you? How do you manage?
Truth is, sometimes I don't. And it has been like, it has just, oh my gosh, I'm not even sure I have the words to describe what it's been like. Early 2020 I decided, okay, I am the CEO. I can do this. I had heard Trish Williams on Laura Park Figueroa's podcast. And I messaged her and I was like, I think I need you in my life because I am trying to be this owner of this business and step into this. And I'm just feeling so much imposter syndrome. And I just really didn't know how to do that and step into it. And my husband had been like, okay, come on, be the CEO. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be. So that started at the beginning of 2020. And then the pandemic hit and we got really big and loud on social. And then our numbers just took off in terms of visibility. And so I felt like it went from manageable to pure craziness for most of 2020 as we were just like, oh my gosh, now we're serving all of these people. And what do we do? And how do we do this? And there was a really steep learning curve for about a year. And I think I just was running on adrenaline and I don't even know. And my poor children, we were fortunate enough in our community that they were offering childcare to healthcare workers. And so during that pandemic time, and I have some interesting feelings about it, because rather than it being this, like, we all hunker down at home together, I was actually sending my children off while I was like busily trying to figure out how to support people on a larger scale,
Sure.
rather than just that one-to-one. And so I think I existed on a lot of adrenaline for a good year. And then I don't know. I think like everything, I know what it was. I got pregnant.
Yeah. I was just going to say, wait a minute, somewhere in here, Athena, comes.
Yeah. So spring of 2020. So I'd actually hired an OT the beginning of 2021 because I knew I wanted to continue fostering the referral relationships that I had. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to bring this OT on with this intention. I'm hoping I get pregnant. Like, it was still not like a for sure thing. And that relationship didn't work out the way I had hoped. And then I got pregnant sooner than I thought. And then I think it was just this like huge wake up call of, okay, you've got to pick your priorities. And so there was this real sense of, okay, what can I do? What can't I do? And it's amazing how when like a health issue, like being pregnant's not an issue, but it is this change in your health and it imposes itself on you. And suddenly you have to make decisions for your health that you might not have made purposefully before. And I found it a lot easier during that time to say no, because I physically I couldn't push myself the way I had been pushing myself. And so I think that was slow down. And we saw a slowdown in our business too, because I was doing less. And towards the end of 2021, I ended up hiring a rehab assistant to then take over my clients while I was trying to give myself a mat leave. The one thing I didn't share in there is, again, at the beginning of 2021, I hired a virtual assistant who started to take off a lot of things that I had been doing. We automated more things. We had a good year with lots of clients or lots of customers to then understand our business flow. And I think I was able to step back a bit because we had some things in place. So I think your original question with how do you manage all of that? I feel like I just told you a whole story. It's not one thing. And I think that's been part of the tricky thing, is that it changes.
Yeah.
Like we enter these different seasons of life, and how we show up and what we can handle looks different. And I think where I'm at today is, okay, what can that look like on a more long-term basis? Because I'm looking back at how things were managed over the last 2 years, and I'm saying, okay, things have got to change moving forward, because there has to be more off of my plate so I can function at more of that visionary higher level. And I think that transition happens for a lot of people in their business. It's like craziness when you're trying to do everything, and then you get to a place where you really have to pass it off for it to grow. And people have said that to me before, but I feel like I'm feeling it in a very different way. You really see your limitations. And then as I start passing things off to different, like getting people in for marketing and getting people in for social media, and as you pass those off, you actually start to realize that other people can sometimes do things better than you.
Yes. And very efficiently, because that's all they do. Or they're not overthinking it like we do. They're like, oh,
Yep.
I'm going to put some words on a post and they make sense and they have this rhythm. And we're like, wow, I would have taken 2 hours to come up with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or they share your message in a way that you might not have been confident enough to share.
Totally.
And so that's that.
It's hard too, because I've been very aware for quite some time that I want to be just the visionary in my business. Like, I want to be the talent, and I want somebody else to manage all the details and the tasks and that sort of thing. And I want to connect and be creative and conceptual and that sort of thing. But I found it really hard to find the right people I've wanted to have like a right-hand person or an online business manager or somebody to do those things. But I've had some trouble getting that role going. So I have Smeal, right? But with a VA, you have to be like, okay, do this. And I would love somebody to be all in my business, knowing what needs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're still not managing all the pieces.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it's like at home, if nobody takes initiative for any chat, I have to make sure I'm on top of who needs haircuts and who needs vaccinations and who needs their nails cut, or that we're out of milk or things like that. And it would be nice to offload that in a business.
And I think it comes in, I'll speak from I shouldn't say you, but from my own experience, you start somewhere. right?
Yeah.
So hiring the VA was where I started. I'd never worked with someone in that capacity before. And so having a VA and being like, okay, do this. Okay, go do that. Okay, go do this. It was this gradual letting go
Yeah.
of things. And which now, this just in the last month, we've hired someone for customer support, and then we've hired someone into a customer account manager role. So that VA role turned into these two other roles that are more specialized. But it took having a VA to really understand those two roles, and then to be able to hire into those roles, understanding the type of person that needed to be in the role and the skills that person had. And it can be scary getting started. And I've known for 2 years I wanted 4 or 5 different people in all these different roles, but it really took hiring that first person to then go, okay, now we can hire these 2 people. And the plan is still to hire a VA. Right now, our customer account manager is acting that plus VA, and then hopefully we'll hire a VA. I don't know. We'll see. I think it's evolving, and we're learning as we go what the business needs.
You find, no, I'll rephrase that. I know you find, because we've had conversations about this before, that there's this there's a tone in a lot of the business coaching we hear and read and see. And there can be this tone of, well, grow more, you can do it all, you can do everything, give it 110%, sort of that very often coming from men who don't have 3 kids and working from home and all of those things too, right? But not always. And so it can be called hustle culture. It can be called just being ambitious and having goals to drive for them and set these big targets and go for them. How do you relate to that? How do you manage that? How do you find balance in all of that? Noise. Maybe it's not noise. Not lots of it is good. I'm not saying it's all bad.
It's tough, though. I think there's this learning curve of who do I listen to? Because there are a lot of voices out there and a lot of people that are willing to offer their advice and tell you what they think you should do. And then there's your own internal conversation about how you think you should be showing up. And it's definitely evolved. I feel in a transition of evolution right now where my personal mission is to break up with hustle culture right now, because I've looked at what other people are doing from the outside, and I think, why can't I show up like that? Again, I'm seeing one sliver of what they're doing, and then I'm extrapolating that over their whole life, and I'm assuming that they're always showing up super efficient, super productive all of the time. And just that idea of, okay, I'm going to just work like really hard for 2 months and then I'll take a break. And I've had that conversation in my head. And I finally, in the last couple months, have admitted to myself, I don't function that way. That isn't something that works for me. Every time I try it, I burn myself out and I end up taking steps backwards. And so I am in this phase of, how can I break up with that thought of, I'm just going to hustle, get myself to that next point, because every time I try to, I end up crashing and burning, and I lose time in a sense because of trying to do too much and then almost retreating and being like, no, I gave too much of myself. Now I need to pull it back. And I think before I saw it as, I think they're similar. It's hustle over like that overproduction. Is that what overachieving? They're all very similar in what they produce. Can we call them all the same thing? Like hustling, overachieving, overproducing,
Overfunctioning.
overfunctioning.
I feel like they're like a Venn diagram that looks like this like that little kaleidoscope where it's mostly all overlapped.
Yeah. And I'm like in the middle, trying to just, I can do it. And I know I can. Like so my VA ended at the end of September, and then we tried to hire the person, quit within a week. It all turned out really well. She ended up referring someone to us that's an even better fit than she was. And it feels like magic, like all coming together. But in the moment, I'm like, I felt so frustrated with the people that we were hiring and really wanting that person to be a good fit. And I'm like, no, I can just do it all. No, I can't. And it's just an illusion, because whenever you try to do it all, you miss something.
For sure.
And yeah.
I think I've always worked in adult rehab or adult mental health, and thinking about people with chronic pain or persistent mental health conditions too, where they come out of the clouds and have a good day. So they do it all and then they crash. And then they have a few bad days, and then there's a couple good days, they do it all, and then they crash. And I'm always trying to like reduce that range so that maybe if you could have okay days every day, that would be more sustainable than these boom and bust cycles. And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And coming from that, there's this thought of, oh, but I feel like I want to do it now, so I should do it now because I don't know when I'm going to have that energy again. But having that identified from the outside for me as burnout, that I'm really just going through these burnout cycles, I was then able to go, oh, if I don't burn myself out, then maybe I can find, that place in the middle. I think I'm finding it. Like it's early days of this transition for me, but I have been very intentionally practicing taking time for myself and taking time for my family and doing what I can within business, but not burning myself out. And I am finding that week over week, it's like I'm not dreading Monday as much. Or I still have energy halfway through the week. I haven't totally burnt myself out in the first 2 days. And so it's coming. And I was thinking about it this morning because I chatted with my sister's a life coach and we've done sessions back and forth together. And she had introduced something to me called Monday Hour One by the Life Coach School. It's something that they do. And I'm trying to remember that lady's name. It's not coming to me. But when you're doing Monday Hour One, the idea is you're planning your schedule for the week, but you plan yourself first. And I remember very distinctly looking at her and being like, well, I can't do that. Like if I
For
put
everybody
myself,
else. Yeah.
there are too many things that need to get done. How could I possibly plan myself first? Like it just felt completely unfeasible to do that. And this morning I was thinking, how could I not? How could I not plan myself first? Because if I don't plan myself first, then everything else ultimately falls apart eventually.
You're the foundation that all of these systems work on. And if that foundation's crapped out, so to speak.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Good for you. And so you've also, I know you've been talking about, you've been doing something else on Mondays.
I've been taking Monday morning off. I've just been having Monday morning for myself, which is something that I think in some ways I was already doing it, but I was doing it with guilt. Doing it with, I should be doing something else. And I've leaned into, no, I'm going to take those 2 to 3 hours on Monday morning and I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to go on a walk. I'm going to do my own project and give myself that space and time to show up and not forcing myself to be ready to work right at the beginning of a Monday. And I find it as a mom, I don't know, Monday comes and I'm like, kids are in school. We've had a good solid couple days of family time and I'm ready for some me time. And as I've done that for about 4 weeks now, I am really noticing how much more smoothly my whole week goes because I'm giving myself that allowance on Monday. So rather than being behind or not getting as much done, I am actually more productive because I'm giving myself that time, which is logically, I've known that for a long time.
Yeah.
But actually putting it into practice and feeling it happen, it's slightly mind-blowing. Yeah.
Like you're filling your cup first. You're putting gas in the tank first, which is getting you through the week rather than waiting to see if you got a little leftover for yourself somewhere in the week.
Exactly.
Or do if you get leftovers.
I think what I used to do before is I would then take it, but I would almost take it with this rebellious, I've done too much, so I'm taking this time for myself rather than honoring myself. And so it's a very, either way, I think I was taking the time, but it feels very different when I'm putting myself first compared to stealing that time away or feeling guilty for taking that time because I should be with the kids or I should be doing this. And it is that, and it's the boundaries. It's that having boundaries with myself, having boundaries of when I'm working and when I'm not working, and communicating that with the people that are around me. You lose your energy and efficiency when you're ping-ponging between all these different roles, and that is also contributing to some of that burnout. And so as I put boundaries around when I'm available, when I can take you to the store to do this thing that you want to do. And what's great is as I set those boundaries and I'm communicating those in a more clear way and then honoring them, my kids aren't coming up to me being like, you said you'd get off the computer an hour ago. And then I'm feeling guilty because I'm still working. And again, it's one of those things like, oh, you set boundaries and everything's better.
But you really have to, there was a process in coming to those boundaries of seeing the importance of honoring yourself with those boundaries.
Yes.
It's not about pushing people away. It's about
No.
respecting and honoring yourself and your needs. That
Yeah.
whole system relies on you. You rely on you. All these people rely on you. Your company relies on you, and you are important, even without those things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all of putting myself in that position and having the boundaries. I feel that I'm showing up in the roles in my life with more calm, with more clarity, and with more energy because I'm being honored as well. And it's definitely been a process. And I think it's been a process over years. It's not just been this year and this year's transitions. It's been years of awareness, levels of awareness, and taking all of these different transitions and looking for more awareness to figure out, okay, I've noticed these cycles. How can I shift it? And I love to think that like, oh, I've arrived.
Check, that's done.
Yeah, but I'm not going to be that naive because I feel like I've been there before. I'm like, oh, I got it. I figured it out. But life delivers us constant change. And so I feel that I'm starting to approach life knowing, okay, I need to actually check in every week. What do I need? What are my boundaries this week? What's important? And going through what are the values that I'm living into? And I need to do that on a weekly basis so that I'm checking in on where things are at.
I've been so grateful to have you in the Activate Vitality program, in the Activate Vitality community, and sharing your journey with others. Others are seeing you go through all of these changes, the recent changes. Like you said, you've been at this for years. We're all constantly growing. And so I feel grateful to be on this leg of your journey. But you shared about the story of setting boundaries and creating some Monday space. And I really loved a reflection you made recently about how the community supported you in that. Are you comfortable sharing?
Yeah, when it was, I guess, probably about a month ago, and one of the members said, okay, so you did that this week. You need to do it again next week. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I need to do it again next week. And as Monday was approaching throughout the week, I had her voice in my head saying, you've got to do it again. And so
and she's in the UK, so I'm sure you heard her accent, right?
I did.
Put it in your diary.
And so I did. And that Sunday night, I'm like, okay, tomorrow morning, it's for me. What am I going to do? What am I going to plan? And it felt so good coming to the call on Wednesday that week and saying, hey, I did it. And she was there to cheer me on. And it's just, I don't know, it's been really beautiful having that place to share and also that place to have accountability. I'll be honest, I was skeptical about the group setting and what that was going to feel like.
I know you were.
And yes, I was. Like, I'm all for coaching and counseling. It's changed my life. It has really helped me to learn so much. I was really skeptical about the group and what that was going to be like. And it's so beautiful. The group is so beautiful because we're all there honoring each other and helping keep each other accountable. And you learn from other people's stories and what they're going through. And I do think it's also this reminder that there's so many layers to us as humans. And what we see on the surface is only just a very small portion. And when you get into this group, it's, oh, you're struggling with that. I'm struggling with this. We're all just trying to do the best that we can. And it humanizes your struggles and your successes because we're all having both. Yeah, it has been really helpful. It's not easy being consistent. I don't know. Maybe there are people out there that have mastered it better than I have. But I feel like, oh, I don't know. And I get so hard on myself about, I did it before. Why can't I do it now? And being a part of this group and having your planner as this reminder continues to remind me. And I do think like showing up at that call once a week, and I have it in my calendar and it's a non-negotiable. And I didn't know how important it was going to be for reminding me of I'm working on living into my values. I'm working on understanding what those are, right? I'm working on honoring myself. And you have that reminder every week. That's what you're doing. And that's what's important.
It's really cool. So I'm really, really grateful you shared all that. I think it's really interesting too, because so often on the calls, I sit back and mostly listen, right? You've got sometimes, I think we had 12 people on a call recently, and sometimes there's one or two, but I have a lot of time to think because people are often just helping each other. And my job's kind of easy to facilitate. And certainly I support everybody, but in observing, I think there's an element of we hear all these messages we were talking about earlier too. We hear all these messages out there about business and motivation and go, and then we're like, what am I choosing to listen to? And
yeah,
I think there's that element of mirror neurons, and we're wired to be like those we surround ourselves with, right? And to fit into our community for safety. And it's almost like this almost passive support of habit change because you're in a community of other people who are also working on unhustling, being really authentic, working on honoring themselves, setting boundaries, aligning with their values. And so if it's just normal that people come and go, I took a day off and everybody cheers.
Yeah.
Then it's, okay. Yeah. Like these are cultural norms of a community.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so true. That's so true. And I do think I'm hopeful that in general, the world is changing that way where we're honoring ourselves more, but there's definitely still, I don't know, like busy's good. Yeah. And I've tried to adjust my own words when I say, I'm really busy this week, but it's with intention and priority. And I've had some people say, I don't want to bother you, you're busy. And I was like, sometimes I'm busy napping. Sometimes I'm busy playing with the kids or making dinner. Yes, I'm busy. There's a lot going on in my life, but that doesn't mean I don't have time might not have time this week. Like we might have to plan it in next week, but I still have time for the things that are important to me in my life. And I am being more intentional about making more of that happen than just the work, because work will just consume you whole. I've decided. Like it's just, there's always more. There's always more.
Always, always. And it's our jobs to set the boundary on how much was enough for today.
Yeah.
And I find sometimes if I get in that zone, for me, it's often in the early morning because I wake up before the rest of the world. Unfortunately, I can't help it. But I can get more in those first few hours than I would on a normal 8 to 4.
Yeah.
And so who's to say that I still need to work 8 hours just because there's more on the list? Well, there's always more on the list. And one of the beauties of being self-employed is to go, well, I think I've done enough today.
Yeah.
But giving yourself permission to do that and knowing you can do that are two different things.
100%. Yeah. And I think on the flip side, giving yourself permission to work a 12-hour day and giving your permission to work a 4-hour day and to recognize that you can't do 12-hour days over and over again on repeat. You do need to rest at some point. But there are, I don't know, sometimes I just have the energy to do it. And so why not do it when it works? But then again, to give yourself that permission to scale it back when maybe that's what's needed.
Yeah.
So, it has to be this continual check-in. And I've tried to find this is my schedule. This is my schedule Monday to Friday, and this is what I'm going to do. And the truth is, between clients and kids and myself, it changes. It changes and it ebbs and flows. And I am starting to find and embrace that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. And that's the beauty of being able to run my own schedule, right? Is that I do get to make those choices. Well, there's more responsibility in that.
Sure.
And it sometimes will take more energy when, it isn't, I show up at this time and leave at this time. But there's also lots of good that can come from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm reminded of a conversation we had, it was a couple of months back. You had come to me and the gist of the question was, hey, I have this 5-year vision, or I like to envision where I'd like to be. down the line and what life looks like and what those tangibles are, what next year looks like. Why don't you tell me what your question was?
Okay. Oh, I'm trying to remember. I think it was around, I think this was the conversation around having goals that are specific, but not so specific that you then feel like you failed when you don't get there.
Yeah.
And
SMART goals, they're the gold standard, right?
yeah, yeah. And I hear this a lot. Being a rehab professional and then being in the business world, when we first started, they called them OKRs, objective key results.
Okay.
Oh, anyways, it's
Kind of
like
like KPIs, key performance indicators.
no, the KPIs are different.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have your KPIs that you're making yourself again, but then the OKRs were it's a way of setting goals for the year. So it's a way of doing yearly and quarterly planning.
Okay.
And we were doing this with a business coach from Accelerate Okanagan. And she basically said, if you meet your goal, you didn't set it high enough. And I'm like, wait, what? It was like a totally new way of looking at things. And you probably should only be getting 70 to 80% of your goal.
Mm.
And it's just like a total mind shift in looking at things because I'm like, why would I set a goal I can't achieve? Or I don't know if I'm going to get there. And yeah, I don't know. I think I'm still trying to figure out how to balance that because I think it is really important to have goals and have that vision in that future. It's also important to give yourself room and grace that we don't have a crystal ball and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And all we're trying to do is our best.
Yeah. Or sometimes maybe we should be trying our 70 to 80% because our best is pretty darn a lot. And
Yeah.
when you're really on, like it's full tilt. You run out, you burn out. Yeah.
I interviewed a business owner from Cochrane, Alberta, a week or 2 weeks ago.
I could drive there in 20 minutes. I used to work in Cochrane.
Good. I'm going to give a shout out to Tiana.
I know her.
Do you know Tiana? She
Yeah.
runs Ascend Peds in Cochrane. And so she recently shared with me her view on failure. And she actually finds that word to be a trigger word. And she just flat out doesn't believe in it. It's not failure, it's learning and growing.
Yeah.
And I've heard different variations of that over
growth mindset, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I felt like she took it to this other level that just really reminded me that it's how we look at it. And anytime we set a goal, we're giving ourselves permission to move forward. And if we accept or see not achieving that as failure, then we're not honoring the process of getting there. And I think I'm definitely still figuring out how that looks and what that looks like. I just think we need to be a lot more gentle with ourselves and know that goals are important and not meeting them can sometimes teach us just as much or more than if we meet our goals.
It's true. It's true. And I think a lot of OTs are pretty high achievers who tend to work who tend to work perfectionism a little bit when the going gets tough. So high achievement can be good, but then when stress sets in and we try and control everything and become really perfectionistic about it, it's not great. But it's interesting because I am like truly a good enoughiст at heart. Like I actually have to power through the last few dishes when I'm unloading the dishwasher because I'm a non-finisher. And I think it's part of my ADHD and a little bit of maybe demand avoidance and that sort of thing. Not quite pathological demand avoidance, but close. But I still, as a person who's, full on, let's try, let's do it messy, let's do it imperfectly. Like I truly embrace that. And I set a financial goal for myself last year for the first time for my business. I had a private practice since 2007. And my goal initially was if I can make part-time what I would have made working for Alberta Health Services full-time, great. That's a great benchmark. Let's speak for that. And I always had that. And so my business continued to grow and things in my private practice. And then I shifted toward group coaching. And so there's a correction there, right? Because needing to make that transition. But last year, for the first time, I set a target that yeah, this was a revenue target for the year. And I didn't shit in that's just going to happen sort of way, but it was a sense of disappointment. So not a sense of failure, but it
Right.
was the first time I had ever felt disappointed in my business. And it's like a slightly different flavor on the same, right? It was just a slightly different vibe that when I set the goal, I thought, yeah, that's really possible. And life would change with that number. And that would be pretty cool. And I set an audacious
Yeah.
goal and a realistic within reach goal. And I didn't hit the
Yeah.
realistic within reach goal. Ended up about the same as the year before, which is just fine. Thing to be disappointed about, maybe, because it's still a little down from where I was before.
But the disappointment comes in because you set the goal.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would have still been disappointed for not growing in the year, though I know lots of other things moved, lots of other things improved over that year. I'm happy with where my business is at today, but it was just that number was too specific.
Yeah.
I don't really have a question, but I'm curious. And I don't think the answer is not setting financial targets. I don't think that's what I'm trying to say.
No, but what I was just thinking is, yes, maybe there's some disappointment in that. And I felt that too, 100%. And I felt that disappointment to the point of why, okay, maybe I'm a bit of a glass half empty person, but I'm like, why bother? Like, I just get disappointed. I just get frustrated. Now, having a few years in business, though, I'm now able to look back and be like, oh, we did reach that milestone. And setting the goals, maybe it's more looking at what is it that you do because you set that goal. Right? Because you probably took different action in your business looking at that goal to get there. And maybe it's letting go of the timeline. That's one of the things that
I think that was our conclusion when we talked about this before. It was the timeline that was disruptive because we don't necessarily have as much control over that element.
Because I've looked and I've gone, oh, we hit that milestone. Oh, we just hit that milestone. And it's later. It took longer to get there. The things that I thought would happen maybe didn't. Yeah. But having that goal pushed me to consistently take action. And yeah, so I think that was the conclusion. It's like letting go of that timeline that maybe you have that goal and you're going to try to get there, but you can
get there one day. We'll do what we can.
Yeah. And I do think, and I'm hoping that this conversation will be different in a year because as you get further along in your business, you start to see more patterns and you start to see, okay, what really is moving the needle? Okay, what are the different things that I can do? And as you start to understand your business and you have more years to look at and more consistent years to look at, because in the very early stages, it's, I don't know, I did this and that happened. Did X do Y? I'm not really sure. But as you have a couple of years, you can then start to see there's more predictability in forecasting. Yeah. When you do that at the beginning, you're just throwing a number at the wall. Like you hope for it to happen. But when you get more understanding of how your business functions, then I do think you can make more predictable projections.
And it makes
at least that's what they tell me.
And when you think about both of our timelines, both of us made our shift in the pandemic, right? From having private practices that we couldn't possibly keep up with,
right?
To I make this other thing. It's scalable, right? With a private practice, you hit that ceiling where either you hire 1 million employees and become a manager, or you just have so many hours to give and you can increase your rates, but you can only go so far with that. And so we both went to something that there isn't a ceiling on, and that disruption from, wait a minute, I never had to look for work before, to suddenly now, okay, I've built something new. What does that mean? What's marketing? What's all of that about? How do we get consistency? Because there was consistency in a busy private practice that isn't in this thing that is a leverage offer. I think one of my coaches called it a flywheel. That's a lot of cranking for a while. It's like figuring it out, cranking
the pump.
Yes,
before it starts gushing out. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
So there will be some gushing.
It's coming. It's coming. 2023.
Totally.
We're sitting with our buckets. Lady, we're ready. We put all the systems in place.
It's awesome. Now with Therabyte, how can people find you? What do you have going on right now that you'd like to tell people about?
Yeah. So I spend most of my time on Instagram or LinkedIn.
Okay.
If you look up Therabyte app on either, so at Therabyte app on Instagram and well, on LinkedIn, yes, Therabyte app is there, but if you follow me, Ashley Reina on LinkedIn,
Okay.
that's probably better.
Okay.
And I have been doing monthly webinars. So similar, it feels podcast ish, just
Yeah.
with a live audience. And the monthly webinars have been so fun to do. And last month I did a panel with 4 OTs, and it was such a rich conversation talking about private practice, what has worked for these practitioners. And I'm going to continue to do this webinar every month,
Great.
highlighting a business owner and their journey in private practice. And then there is some talk about Therabyte. The goal is to really just show how feasible and doable private practice is. And then, and then what Therabyte's role is in that. Obviously, there are other EMRs you could use, but that's what we talk about during our
Sure.
webinar. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I watched the one you did with Jasmine from
Oh,
the
yeah.
group, and I cried. I cried. It's so
Yeah.
good.
That was my first one, and it
Was
was
it?
yeah, that was fun.
Oh, so good.
If you're interested, when the webinar is coming up, I do try to showcase it on social, but if you even just want to reach out, Ashley at therabyte.ca, and I can always send you the meeting link to join that event.
And that's Therabyte spelled with Therabyte, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. What is being brave? What does that mean to you?
What does being brave? I think being brave is showing up again and again and showing up in a way that exposes the challenges and the successes and allows for all of it as we are whole people. Yeah, I think that's what brave is. It can be challenging when things don't go as you expect them to or failure happens. It can be really hard to show up again. And that to me is being brave, is just showing up again and again in different ways or in the same way for your audience, for yourself, for your family. That's brave.
Mhm. Yeah. And you are doing such a good job of that and being open and vulnerable and honest. And I think we can really model that for others who are coming along and being more open and really lead that mission of showing up as your whole person, authentically sharing some of your stories of some of the bumps and bruises that happen along the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
How would you like to see OTs being a little bit more brave in the next couple of years?
Oh, I continue to be amazed at the ideas and the businesses and the coaching and the different things that OTs are doing within the field and outside of the field. We have a couple interns that have been working with Mike on UX design and seeing these OTs moving from practice to moving into the tech space, but in a different capacity, but bringing all of those analytical skills into tech. And I more of that. We have so much to offer the world in terms of the way we analyze and think and see the person and connect it to the problem. And we really are primed for being entrepreneurs and
We are.
being at the front line. And so I really think that we need to be more brave and stand up and share those ideas in a way that is going to impact more people.
Innovation is what we do
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
day
That's
as a
it.
task.
That's totally it. Yes. Yeah.
I thank you so much for being here. And yeah, it was a wonderful conversation.
Oh, thanks, Carlin. Thank you so much for what you're doing, for the way you are showing up in such a brave capacity and the gifts that you're giving to this OT community, because there's a lot of unlearning, I think, that needs to happen. And you're helping us as a community to unlearn that and to really get in touch with ourselves and to show up in a way that ultimately honors us and offers more impact. So thank you for giving us a space for that.
It is my pleasure. And just like you built Therabyte as a solution for something you needed, I built this because it's what I needed.
Amazing.
I hope you got some great takeaways from that chat. If you want to hear more, Ashley and I are putting on a webinar together. Therabyte is hosting me in a free webinar all about how we can use acceptance and commitment therapy concepts to manage all of the self-doubt and all of the fears that come up when we're starting a business, while also building clarity of values that can guide your choices. So please follow the link in the show notes to join us for a February 15th webinar. And if you have any questions for Ashley, you can reach her at ashley@therabyte.ca. Or if you have any for me, cneek@balanceworksot.ca.